Risky business with Pete and Teresa. Talking trouble till it turns into reason. From our old moments till we got this pictures. They're riding that line between safe and ambitious. Risky business with Pete and Teresa. Where smart beats lucky every season.
G'day everyone and welcome to Risky Business podcast number 3. I'm Pete and across the desk from me is the woman who can spot a toxic workplace from 3 suburbs away. Teresa, how are you going?
Hello, I'm going well, thank you. And yourself, Pete?
I am fantastic.
So it's a gift. Look, it may be a curse. Today we are talking about culture, specifically risk culture, which usually sounds like something the risk department dreamed up during, one of their long lunches, but it's actually really the heartbeat of the company.
Yeah, exactly right, Teresa. People ask me, Pete, how many cultures are there? You've got organisational culture, you've got risk culture, safety culture, coffee culture. I prefer my wine culture.
Yes, my favourite.
Exactly. But honestly, it's getting like a yogurt shop. But really, there is only one.
Yeah.
It's just how we get things done around here when nobody is looking.
Absolutely. So if we simplify that, if all culture is the personality of the business, what is risk culture?
Look, I would look at risk culture as that immune system.
Yeah.
It's part of your brain that tells you, hey, maybe don't sign that contract without reading page 40.
And the small print.
And the small print, exactly. Or maybe we should mention that the servers are currently on fire. What are we going to do, folks?
I like to think of it as the grip. Organisational culture could be the car's engine. It's the energy, it's the fun, it's the get up and go. Risk culture would be the tyres. So if your tyres are bald, it doesn't matter how fast your engine is or, what you've got under the hood of the car, you are going into the first ditch you come across.
That is so true. I actually really like that analogy. But look, let's be real here. Most people think a risk culture means everyone is walking around in bubble wrap. But a great risk culture actually lets you take more risks because your team has the integrity and the guts to speak up when things look dodgy.
So true. So let's flip the switch a little bit. Let's get dark for a second.
Ooh, the lights have just gone down in the studio, folks.
The mood is changing. What are the downsides of a shitty culture?
Oh, man. Look, I think if you spoke to most people, they would be able to talk to you about working in an organisation which has actually had a bad culture.
Yeah.
And a bad risk culture is really like almost like a slow gas leak, I suppose. You don't notice it at first, but everyone starts to get a bit of a headache and eventually someone lights a match and boom. It's a shitty culture. Bad news doesn't travel up. It stays hidden in a drawer until it turns into either a $10 million fine or you're on the front page of the local news or worse still on national or international media.
Yeah. And the impact is lasting. I think for a shitty culture, you can't just fix it.
No.
So you're not going to have, a pizza lunch and we're going to slap up some new posters in the break rooms. It's in the DNA. It stays in the walls. It affects your ability to hire good top talent because top talent doesn't want to work in a place where you have to cover your back. Or where cover your back is actually the unofficial motto.
Yeah, 100%, Teresa. And look, let's talk about the personal impact. And we've all been there. That Sunday night, sick feeling. You're sitting on the couch.
Yep.
If you're like me, I'm sitting on the couch watching my loved Below Deck. The theme's playing on the TV.
That's something new. I didn't know about you, Pete.
It's my guilty pleasure. But, you're sitting on the couch watching your favourite show and then your stomach just starts doing backflips because you're heading back into that toxic pit on Monday morning. If your staff feels like they're going to war instead of work, then your risk profile or your risk exposure is going to go through the roof.
Yeah, agreed. So let's be completely honest, Pete. As a risk professional, have you ever walked away from a gig because the culture was just shitty and wrong?
Yeah, look, I have, and I can share a really personal story here. And I work for a particular organisation. I can remember I was called in to work with them to redevelop their risk framework, all the documentation, and to really work on shifting the values and behaviours around risk to being more positive. So we got to a point where in this organisation, I'd done a lot of work with the executive, had a bit of a touch point with their board.
Yeah.
And however, in an audit and risk committee meeting, the chair of the audit and risk committee said, look, Pete, the work you've done with the executive is great. But what we would like is to get more information and some education around risk management with the board members. So again, I've turned to the team, I've high-fived them.
Yep.
This is great, fantastic. Walk back to my office and the team comes and go, oh, how'd it go, Pete? And I said, oh, this great outcome. The board want us in there to teach them more about risk management and get better uptake in what they're doing.
I sense a butt coming.
Yeah. CEO walks past my office as soon as the meeting was over and says, Pete, you know how the chair of the audit risk committee said they want you to go in and talk more about risk with the board? Don't worry about that.
Don't
the board's
worry
about
that.
The board's not really into risk. In fact, the board finds risk really boring. And so I sat there at my desk and I was shocked. I was in a state of shock.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I walked around to the CEO's office and knocked on the door, went in and I said, oh, look, you know what you just said before? Were you serious that the board don't really give a shit about risk? They don't want any further training.
Not interested.
Yeah. He goes, yeah. It's just a waste of time. And I said, well, if you're serious, so in that time I'd been contemplating this in my office. I said, if you're serious, so am I. You'll have my resignation by the end of today. Yeah. And I resigned. Yeah. Because I thought I can't work in an organisation that will not have a champ. And like the CEO needs to be your champion for risk management. Yeah. So my values and my behaviours did not align with that organisation anymore. Yeah. So I resigned, and it was one of the best decisions I made. Yeah. But I'm sure everyone out there's got their own story. And Teresa, I'm sure you've got plenty of stories as well.
Yeah. So I think as Oxford and James has taken its own, and, you know, we're on, as much as I hate to say it, we're on the journey, being a small business and, you know, recently getting into business. But there are organisations we don't agree with the value of the organisation. So you'll get an inquiry and you spark that conversation, but you know that this is just a tick and flick. There's absolutely no interest in maintaining a sound risk management practice. So you're less likely to quote or to, you know, tender for any work in that space. But I think when I had children and became a mum, your focus changes. I don't have time for the Sunday sick feeling, because chances are Sundays I have to be on my A game for two kids that run absolute circles around me, right? And I want to dedicate, you know, my time and energy at home. I don't have time for the Sunday sick feeling. I don't want to work at an organisation. It's not even about the glory. No. Like, I don't need a plug. I don't need, you know, the corner office. That would be nice. But it is about that integral fabric of wanting to do the right thing and wanting to do the right thing safely. So, yeah. And I find with a shitty culture, it hits my values so hard that, you know, I find myself crying.
Yeah.
Right? Not in front of people.
No.
You know, but the emotion comes into it where I feel my values are being stomped on, and I just can't get any traction or bring my love for risk into an organisation, and I don't want to be there anymore.
No. And that is so true. And I think we've all been there, particularly if you've been a risk practitioner for an organisation, is that we've all been in organisations where you've almost had to fight to do your job.
100%.
And that is just ridiculous. Yeah. So you have to fight to go, hey, I'm on your side.
Yeah, I'm taking bullets for you left, right and centre happily.
Exactly.
Happily, with a smile on my dial.
That's right. I'll come in here and I'll facilitate all these workshops for you, but you've got to give me a little bit back.
Yeah.
And so, you know, don't make it so difficult. Don't put up the roadblocks.
Yeah.
And that's where we see these really poor cultures or these negative cultures, and they have serious consequences.
Yes.
So that example I gave you before, what happened? That CEO actually lost their job.
Yep.
They appointed an interim CEO, and then administrators actually took over that organisation.
Oh no!
So, and that was all because they actually promoted a really negative culture, and it wasn't just around risk management, by the way, either. It was a really poor culture.
Of course. Yeah. Of course.
But I think, you know, when we think about, you touched on something there about your values not aligning. And I think when we look at positive cultures and we think about a positive culture that considers a risk as part of the decision making. So I'm not going to say risk culture.
Yeah.
Where your personal values and behaviors align with that of what the organization has set, the values and behaviors that they desire to achieve their strategic objectives, when they align, that's when we see those really high-performing teams.
Yeah.
So you think about in the health sector, those high-performing teams are the ones that will make clinical mistakes.
Yep.
And they'll put their hand up and say, hey, we've made an error here.
It went wrong.
It went wrong.
Yep.
Let's do a root cause analysis as to why.
Yep.
Let's learn from it. Let's incorporate that into our business as usual, and we move on from it.
Yep.
And so if you look at organizations where they're reporting bad news,
yep,
they're escalating that bad news without the feel of, oh, my God, I'm going to get blamed.
Yeah, yeah.
I worked in an organisation. So Skefto was engaged just to work with an organisation, and they kept referring to this thing called the GOAT.
Yep.
And I'm thinking greatest of all time.
Yeah, yeah, naturally.
As you do.
MJ,
Yes,
of course.
That's right. So I'm going, yeah, greatest of all time. Luckily, no one called me the GOAT because to them, the GOAT was the scapegoat. So
shit, no.
Who's the person in the room that when everything goes to shit,
yeah,
they're the person we'll blame. And I was sitting in these meetings going, you what? And I said, so what? Why are we always identifying the greatest of all time?
Yeah.
And they laughed. No, Pete. It's actually who is the person that's going to take the fall if this goes wrong?
No.
So you can imagine, that sense of fear within that organization.
Oh.
So again, think about it, folks, about, really encouraging people to, escalate that bad news. But also, if we think about those sort of more positive cultures is, having the right supporting tools in place.
Yep.
We mentioned in our first podcast, the horrible S word, spreadsheets. Move out of your spreadsheets, folks. It's 2026.
Yeah.
So move on to a really good, intuitive platform or solution that's going to support you better in managing risks and all your other compliance stuff as well.
Yeah.
So we've got to move beyond that and really support our people.
Exactly.
And I think that's the real key driver is having the right values and behaviours, the right people in the right roles, and that culture that supports you when things do go wrong, that we've got your back.
Yeah, so true. And you tapped into something like the root cause analysis. There are regulators in Australia who will say, okay, you got it wrong. Let's understand why. Yep. So you do that process of a root cause analysis. Let's get back to basics. It's interesting. You hear sometimes, I don't want to promote a blame culture when not necessarily the risk team, but someone is trying to break down where the problem occurred because there has been a failure, a significant failure that is going to impact results for an extended period of time. And sometimes the feedback is, I don't want to promote a blame culture, but I look at that and I say, hang on a second, you actually don't want to understand how we got here.
No.
Because if you did want to understand how we got here to make that positive change, we would be having a conversation. We would be having that root cause analysis conversation. And it's not about throwing someone under the bus at all.
No.
It's saying these are the levers that were pulled that failed. These are the internal controls that either we're missing or that there was significant breakdown that led us to this point. So I've always my back's up a little bit when I hear that I don't want to promote a blame culture.
Yep.
Because it is almost impacting on getting to the root cause of how we got here.
Correct. And how do you learn and grow as an organisation?
Exactly.
If you're not being reflective.
Exactly.
And I think, those, and in our next podcast, we're going to have a real focus on organisational resilience. But those resilient organisations are ones that are learning from their past, learning from mistakes we've made, owning those mistakes and going, well, how do we learn from this? How do we incorporate that into business as usual?
Yeah.
And so we can really thrive as an organisation.
Yeah.
And I think that really what underpins a resilient organisation is a really strong, positive culture as well.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a real opportunity out there for all of our risk practitioners and for anyone that's working within an organisation just to be reflective on, ask yourself this question. Do my values align with that of the organisation that I work with?
Yeah.
And if you have that alignment, then are you seeing this sort of high-performing team or high-performing organisation that we would expect to see?
Yeah.
The other thing I would encourage people to think about is, encouraging encouraging people within the organisation to say, hey, it's okay to take risk.
Yes.
And in fact, we need to take risks, because if we don't, we will not prosper as an organisation.
Yep.
We know that. If we look at those organisations that have taken risks in the past, for a majority of them, it's really paid off. In fact, Teresa,
yes.
I'm going to go off script again.
For it.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Go for it.
What's the biggest risk you've ever taken, whether it's in your private life or work life? What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Wow. So I'm pretty risky, I've learned. And the reason I've learned is because I ask this question in workshops, like with participants, as I know you do too. So my husband and I moved to the UK before kids, footloose and fancy free, moved across. I didn't know anyone there. And my brothers are my best mates. So see them, speak to them, really value that relationship. So being on the other side of the world in a completely different time zone, that was hugely risky, because I rely on them so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. But in taking that risk, did it create a new opportunity for you? Did it create a really good experience for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I look at our time in London with so much joy, the friends we've made. And we recently returned from London. We were there a few weeks ago, early 2026. And coming back, I feel so nourished to have seen my friends who have kids the same age as we do, and the opportunities with work, the things I saw, like when you're dealing with organisations and they're talking about, hundreds of millions of pounds in different foreign markets.
Yes.
It is different to something and some of the work you're doing in Australia. So it opened my eyes. It made me so much more resilient. Heaps of war stories, but so much joy.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, and I think when, as you suggested, we ask this question when we are running training, or actually I ask this when I'm engaging with executives, and because I want to get an understanding about the risk takers in the room. But I would say 98% of participants will say that they actually had a positive experience by taking that risk. And so my thing is that if we take risks in our private life and it creates positive experiences, why don't we take a bit more risk when we step into our work site or into our organisation? Because that's what we have risk management for. It sets the boundaries about how much and what type of risk we can take.
Exactly.
And I think
the controls,
exactly. So, and that's where if you've got this in place, you're really starting to promote that culture of, risk management's a good thing. And we want to really put a positive lens on this. So I think that one of the key takeaways today is around, promoting a culture where we want people to manage risk, but also be encouraged to take risk. And also I think the key thing is about that alignment between your own personal values and working within an organisation that those values align. And so if you're one of those people that are out there at the moment going, actually, I really relate to that Sunday night thing. And I may not watch Below Deck with Pete, but I might watch Jersey Shore with Teresa. I don't know. But if you're one of those people who've got that Sunday sickening gut feel, just start to look for organisations that you feel your values would align to. And I guarantee you, if you go and work within those organisations, you will start to see an improved culture, and you will get to a Sunday night where hopefully you'll start going, great, I'm back at work tomorrow. Yeah,
can't wait to see so-and-so in the office. And I think that lends itself to more of an insight and a discussion. There are those organisations you work with, and the people there are so enthusiastic and wonderful to be around, and it puts a spin on when you dread going somewhere versus when you're a part of something. There are still mistakes. There are still things you need to unpack and talk about, but it's done in such a safe way where you're like, yep, it went wrong. This is what we learned from it. This is why it'll never happen again.
Exactly. That's right. And really promoting to have those sometimes difficult conversations. And we all have to have them. So, creating that safe environment. And when I talk about safe, I talk about the psychological safety. Is that I feel that I can have these open and frank discussions with my colleagues.
Absolutely.
And we should be able to. So, look, really, when we think about culture and promoting that sort of positive risk culture. Really, we can't bury this in our reports, in our documents. It's got to be something that we live and breathe.
Yep.
And I think it's got to be really driven from the top, from the chair of the board to your CEO, and your leadership and leaders throughout the organisation demonstrating these positive behaviours and attributes that we would expect to see.
And you see it on, I think the point you made around the annual report, that's so fantastic. You don't talk about it in your annual report. We're beautiful people. We all get along, right?
Yeah.
But it's those metrics around resignation.
Yes.
Those metrics around, how many staff accessed EAP, and we're talking about how horrible the work environment is. And it's anonymous, so you're not going to know those staff, but to have a number to quantify, we're getting 30 calls a month.
Yes,
exactly. We're not happy here. And starting out in audit and looking at risk culture, 20 years ago, but I'm only 21, obviously, and looking at audit, it was so woolly to measure risk culture, but we've actually got data to back it up now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's a really good point you make. Really focus on, looking at how we can measure what that risk culture is looking like.
Yeah.
Or even our overarching organisational culture.
Yeah.
And I know certainly one of the tools that we've developed at Skefto, the risk maturity assessment tool, has a whole section on risk culture that, organisations start to measure, well, this is where we sit on that maturity scale.
Yep.
And, these are the improvements that we can make to really enhance that overarching culture as well. And I think, working with organisations such as Oxford and James that can come in and really support you in, trying to work out, well, what does our current risk culture look like, and what does that desired culture look like?
Where do we want to be?
Yeah, exactly. What behaviours and attributes and values do we want to promote? And then actually having a roadmap or an improvement plan to get there.
Yep.
I think that's really important for every organisation. So again, Teresa, thank you very much. It's been great to catch up with you again and continue the risky conversations that we're having. I'm really looking forward to our next podcast because it is a focus on something I'm truly passionate about, organisational resilience. So look, really, I'm going to head back and watch another episode of Below Deck.
Oh, God.
So I'm Pete Giavassoni. I'll see you next time, folks.
Take care. Bye.
Business with Pete and Teresa, talking trouble till it turns into reason. From our old moments till we got this fixed, they're riding that line between safe and ambitious. Risky business with Pete and Teresa. We're small